Welcome back everybody. Today's one is going to be a pretty quick one. We're just going to rate every agent on Fracture and how good they are and how useful they are. We already established that Astra is an A tier smoker, and then we have Omen that is also A tier, a little worse than an Astra. Brim being the only S tier smoker on this map as a single smoker. Then we have Harbor and Viper being C tier smokers, and Clove being a B tier smoker. Going over to now a Breach. Breach is an S tier initiator on this map because his stuns can be used almost everywhere for attack. His aftershock is also pretty good, and his flashes are obviously pretty useful in most situations. He is also pretty good on defense because he can play in spawn and then just stun wherever the enemies are coming. And Breach stuns are pretty annoying to dodge on this map, especially for some A main aggression. As a defender or attacker, you can both use stuns to get through the A main. So I recommend, if you play an initiator on this map, think of Breach. Then we go over towards a Chamber. In my opinion, Chamber is only a B tier. He's on a similar level to a Clove. He is really heavy focus on the player that plays him. His TP is pretty good to get into certain spots, but most of the times you don't really need to get into those spots. And his gun doesn't really give him that much of an advantage. And he also only has one trip, which makes him pretty weak compared to a Killjoy or maybe even a Cypher. Speaking of Cypher, Cypher, in my opinion, is an A tier sentinel on this map because he has map-wide information, which is pretty good on defense and also on attack. And with his cam, he can put his cam into really good positions to get a lot of information out of the map and tell his team where to rotate to. And just in general, he is a pretty good pick. Coming over towards Deadlock. Deadlock is pretty hard to place because we haven't seen a Deadlock in any pro play or just on this map played in ranked in a long time, like basically never. Since Deadlock has been in the game, Deadlock has undergone a couple of changes, and she has also been buffed a little, which makes me think Deadlock would be in a similar category to a Chamber and a Clove, but just a little bit better. She has 2 stun sensors, which she can place on A side and B side in some pretty effective spots, but in general you're kind of lacking a control over one of the sides. That's why I put her only in the B tier, but all the way on top of the B tier. Then we have a Fade. Fade is, in my opinion, the better info initiator instead of a Sova on this map. That's why I give her the A tier. Sova has been played in pro play, but Fade is just way more common in pro play. And the only team that played Sova on Fracture in pro play was EG, and EG won champions that year. So there might be something to it. We'll see in the near future if Sova is more picked or Fade, but I would still prefer a Fade in my team. Gecko is also a agent that hasn't really seen a lot of play on this map, but just Gecko's util, and especially his option to get information over a main in the beginning of the round as a defender is pretty strong with a safe flash. So that's why I'm gonna put Gecko in the A tier. He is still a little weaker than a Fade, but his kit makes it possible to plant in some really good spots. His volley is pretty good to get the defenders off the spike in a post-plant scenario, and his kit is in general pretty good for this map because his wingman is also pretty good to clear out the close chokes, for example in B Heaven or in A main. Coming over to ISO. I am a notorious ISO hater. That's why I'm gonna put ISO in the C tier. In my opinion, ISO isn't really as good as on other maps. His shield is obviously one of the best abilities in the whole game because he can block basically any damage coming in. But his wall just doesn't get as much good util out, so I don't think playing ISO on Fracture is that good of an idea. Coming over towards the Chet though. Chet is, in my opinion, one of the better duelists you can have on this map because there's a couple of spots where a Chet can get to where other duelists need to use a ability and Chet doesn't need one. That's why I put Chet in the A tier, just in front of Omen. I think an Omen and a Chet can basically do the same thing. If you're playing double smokes and don't really have an entry, you can entry with an Omen, but you can also do the same thing with a Chet. So I put Chet in the A tier. KO is a pretty interesting pick. In my opinion, KO is A tier. He's better than the Cypher, and he's seen a lot of, especially in the end, towards the end of Cypher being in the active map pool, has seen way more play. He has some really good flashes on the map. He also has some really good mollies. His knife is obviously one of the best abilities in the game to get information and detain the enemies to stop a push. And that can be used pretty good in a main. That's why I put KO on the A tier. Also, his ult is pretty strong if he pops it under at the same place as the OP Killjoy ult. By the way, go watch my Killjoy video. He is probably one of the best agents to use as an attacker on this map. Coming over towards Killjoy, and we have our next S tier. In my opinion, Killjoy is the best sentinel on this map. Till Teo gets nerfed, though, Killjoy would only be the A tier, but I think that's gonna happen in like the next 2 or 3 weeks. So his signature ability doesn't kill the Killjoy ult anymore, and up until then, Killjoy is only an A tier, but I'm still gonna put her in the S tier because I think she's an S tier agent on this map. Going over towards Neon. Neon is probably my favorite agent, and she's also pretty good on this map. That's why I give her the A tier, the S tier again. It's a little bit biased, but Neon also has the option to rotate pretty fast through the mid connector. That's why I give Neon the S tier. She can help out on any side, and she is similar to a Euru with his fast rotate abilities with his TP. And also her option to clear out a lot of spaces, for example sands, pretty easily with her stun, and just to get out of main with her wall to use as like a secondary smoke. If your smoker dies, you can still use the Neon wall to get to site and have a pretty easy post plan. Coming over towards Phoenix. Phoenix has been buffed recently, but I still don't think he is that good of an agent on Fracture, because there's not really that many places where you can go to use Phoenix Flash. I think in Tower, Phoenix's Flash is still pretty good. That's why I'm gonna give him the B tier, but all the way on top of B tier. Switching over towards a Raze. Raze has also seen a lot of play on Fracture, and I think Raze in general with her util is close to the S tier, not quite. That's why I'm gonna give her the A tier, even above Astra, because her nade makes it possible to clear out corners, her satchels give her a lot of free mobility, and her boombot can be used to open the door, for example on sands, and this is in general pretty good to get information out of a main. Switching over towards a Raina, easy F tier, not because Raina is bad, but Raina depends on whoever plays her. Her flashes are okay, but you probably, if you play a Raina, have already experienced it. You flash, go around the corner, and the guy still kills you because the flashes don't go like up instantly. And you just need to be a good player to play the Raina on this map. That's why I give her the F tier. She's not a bad agent, but she is just not a good agent if you don't have good aim, or just in general like are a good player. Switching over towards a Sage. Sage is, from the Sentinel side, probably one of the weakest ones, but I still give her the B tier, just below Chamber, because she has the option to wall out of B main and to wall off the whole site on A, which is pretty good to play post plant on, but it can also be shot pretty quickly. She is pretty good at stalling the enemies from coming out with her slows, and her heal is also probably the best heal in the game. In general, I'd recommend you play another Sentinel. If you play double Sentinel with a Sage, it is obviously pretty good, but you need kind of a Sentinel to hold map information for you. Skye has also had a couple of pro play times where she came out, but since her flash nerf, she isn't quite as good anymore, and that actually put her below the Viper in the C tier, because her dog is decent information, but not like the best one, and if the enemies have a good breach, the breach can just aftershock her out of her dog and maybe even get a free kill off of that. And because breach is really is a lot of played on this map, I'd say Skye is just a C tier. Coming over towards Sova. Sova is one of the agents I'm not 100% sure on how he's gonna do. That's why I'm gonna put him at the same level as a Fade. Pro teams are either gonna play a Fade or a Sova on this map, and I think Sova actually has a lot of potential, and people have maybe learned from the EG days, from like old EG, and actually use Sova on this map now. That's why I give him the A tier. Teo is also a pretty interesting one, because he just came out. I personally haven't even played him, but just by his utility kit, I think he is probably one of the stronger initiators to play on this map, and on a similar level to a Breach, but just not quite as good as a Breach. That's why I'm gonna give him the A tier, but below a KO and below a Breach. Euru is a pretty interesting pick. With his ability to TP really fast, I actually give him the S tier because he can rotate pretty fast. He has a clone to open up the door, to just go in, destroy the Cypher Trips, and his flashes are also pretty strong, which makes me think a lot of pro teams are going to try to do something with Euru. And if you are a Euru main yourself, I think you should be happy that Fracture is back, because there's a couple of really cool TPs you can do. And now to the last agent, which is Vice. Vice is also pretty hard to place. She only has her wall to watch for flank, and her util and her kit in general is pretty good to hold a side, but since the enemies can push in from two sides, I don't think Vice is that good of a pick. That's why I'm gonna put her at the little higher than the Chamber and the Sage. She is a usable Sentinel, but I don't think she is quite as good on Fracture as she is on other maps. That would basically be my tier list of every agent on Fracture. If you want to see any other tier lists, write them down in the comments. I'll take a look at them and then make maybe some new ones. And I'm probably not going to be uploading tomorrow because I go skiing, and I might even add a clip after the next video. But there's for sure going to be my next video on Sunday, which is going to be a Lotus guide on Breach, and I hope you guys are looking forward to that. Other than that, I really hope you have a great rest of your day, and see you guys very soon. Bye!